and welcome to episode number 52 of The Pitcher or the Hitter, the podcast by the M-SABR Dynasty League for the M-SABR Dynasty League. I am Cam.
I'm Sahil.
And we got a big episode today. We are, in a little bit, Erik will be coming on the show to announce the winners of all the awards that you guys voted on. Very exciting. Neither of us know who won. We did talk off air a little bit, and our picks were surprisingly similar, which shouldn't shock too many people. Many of whom have complained about our opinions being a little similar on this podcast, but either way, we're excited to see who you guys all voted for and who will follow in the footsteps of last year's winners.
Do you think the fact that we do this podcast every week has slowly kind of merged our thoughts? So we're slowly kind of having one mind here when it comes to a lot of these issues.
Oh, I think absolutely.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. It's maybe soon enough you'll think prospects aren't important.
Yeah. Hey, you're starting to get into prospects. So I think I'm the one who's kind of converting you there.
Yeah, you are slowly converting me. My farm is still quite a bit to be desired, but I think this is the first season in a while where I identified 2 or 3 prospects I really like and then didn't trade them away because I wanted to hang on to them for the future. We'll see if that gamble pays off, but I know I was excited to hang on to them. Speaking of things that we're hanging on to, we're hanging on to Zane. Great transition, right?
Yeah. EBO is coming back. We did a big search. We found a few people who were interested in joining the league. They were all great candidates, but in the end, Zane said he was coming back along with Max. It's kind of an advisory role, and we couldn't say no. EBO will be returning in its usual form for the 2022 season.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny because I feel like we talked so much about EBO leaving the league over the second half of the season and a lot of kind of mini EBO tributes, and we've teased the fact that we're going to talk to them about leaving throughout the last few weeks of the season. It does seem like we're going to get both Zane and Max on at some point to maybe explain that decision further. But it's kind of interesting how this played out too. I think Erik was pretty ready to pick who was going to replace them. And he actually asked you and I was like, just triple check with Zane that he's out. And then Zane was like, well, give me 24 hours. It took him a little longer to 24 hours, but he eventually decided he wanted to come back. I guess I'm kind of surprised just given the way that he's talked about it, but also I kind of had a sneaking suspicion that maybe he was having just a little bit of early midseason burnout, especially with taking on being the LM in the basketball league and the hockey league taking off. And I thought this was a possibility. I didn't think this was likely, but I guess I'm not totally surprised that he's back. But I think I speak for you two when I say we're very excited that he's back.
Yeah, I'm excited to have him back. Excited to continue to be able to have him come on the podcast because he's a great guest. He's a good friend. He's just a lot of fun to be around and talk to. So good to have him as a presence in the league. And just in addition to that, I am definitely surprised though, because it was a big deal, with this team leaving, being one of the mainstays, having been to the finals a few times. So it was, very surprising to see them go. And the fact that we talked it up kind of made it feel like a big deal. And maybe we don't really know what Zane was thinking for the past few months after the All-Star break, but either way, he's going to be back owning the team. And I guess with him being out of the basketball league now, maybe he will have more time to just kind of be active in the league, even if it's not as active as he was back last November or so. But yeah, I mean, either way, it's great.
Absolutely. And I do think one other positive that's going to come from this is that it will give us some time to maybe evaluate other candidates for future openings. So for example, to replace Zane in the basketball league, we got Will Gregory, who's one of the current members of M-SABR. And he seems like a good fit so far in basketball. He's explained to me he's wanted to break into some of these other dynasty leagues. So, rather than kind of getting one of these current M-SABR members into the league blindly, we can get to know them, get to know how they play, see if they are checking their lineups, willing to make trades, kind of bond with the group, whatever, and feel more confident about letting them into this league. Because, if we're being honest, the football and basketball leagues, are competitive, but I do think the baseball and the hockey league is starting to reach that point. I think there's kind of a different level of competitiveness and maybe exclusivity that we're not seeing in the other leagues. So I feel like when we do let somebody in, we want to make sure they are the right fit to the extent that we can.
Yeah, no, I'll say this: the basketball and the football leagues don't have their own podcasts.
No, they do not.
Baseball. Yeah, baseball. Kind of organically was going to be the league that got a lot of traction from the start and would be the one that people. Everyone is in this club because they know a ton about baseball. So obviously that's going to be the one that that people kind of prioritize and the one that people kind of make the most moves in. Whereas hockey, it really just feels like a very concerted effort by especially Andrew, but also Parker and Greg and some of us to really make it into a big thing. And it's worked because I'm really excited about hockey, and I know it's made a lot of people really excited, and it's active, and it's already more active than it was last year. So that also really feels like a league that's gonna stick around.
Oh yeah, I was not aware who Tristan Yari was before we started the league, and now I do. So there's already one good thing that has come out of this.
I can speak for everyone in the league when I'm saying we're all learning a lot more about hockey, which is awesome because hockey is so much fun.
No, it really is. Anything else on this topic, or do we want to move on to your surprise?
So I teased this in the chat. I have a big announcement to make. Should I go into it, or should I build up the suspense a little more?
Nah, go into it, man. You've already built up the suspense on the chat. And I feel like this is one of the few times where you and I do something on the podcast where we both aren't on the exact same page of what is about to happen. Like, I always feel like we talk about it before. I'll randomly chat you during the day with something I want to talk about, or some random stat, or like whatever. And this is weird. I don't know what this is. I'm just eager to hear it. Like, usually I know what's coming. I don't.
Yeah. So I will dive in. You're worried about being let down by this news, but I don't think you're going to be disappointed. My team is, for the first time in almost 2 years, changing its name.
Oh.
Yes. The team, formerly known as Danger Moose, will be heretofore known as the Liam Hendricks Experience, named after, of course, Jimi Hendrix, the Jimi Hendrix Experience. I've always thought it's kind of fun to change your name every once in a while, and it's fun. I always name my football teams after my defense, so I thought it'd be fun to kind of name my baseball team after my relief pitcher. And I think it's a fun name. I have a logo lined up that I'm going to use, and I'm ready for this new experience. And of course, my minor league team will have the new name, the Liam Hendricks Inexperience.
Okay, that honestly might be the best part of it, the minor league team name.
Yeah.
Oh man, maybe I need to trade you Kyle Hendricks now so you could really get the full experience. Although
maybe
no way I'd ever trade Kyle Hendricks; he's a god. But
or I can pick up Ryan Hendricks.
Oh, that is true. I approve. It will be weird not to call you Danger Moose, and I think it's going to take a little while to get adjusted to. But I think Mike Boustakis is not really the hottest brand right now.
Exactly.
But I will miss the name, and I will miss the logo, which I'm actually staring at right now. I forgot that you had photoshopped a little face of Mike Moustakis onto it.
Well, you're not going to be disappointed by my new logo. I'm going to, this is great for an audio medium, but I'm going to send you my new logo now, and you're going to like it.
Oh, please do. Yeah, this was well worth the build up. Oh yes. Oh my God, that might even be better than than your Danger Moose logo.
Yep, there it is.
Oh my God, I can't wait for everybody to see this. This is going to be good.
Yeah, it's a new era for my team. I guess critics would say that I've made the playoffs twice with my Danger Moose name and missed the playoffs twice with other names, but we're not gonna think about that. And it's just a bold step for my team. And I guess this will be active as soon as this podcast drops, I guess, or we can wait a day like we did with the lottery. I guess I haven't really decided yet.
Yeah. You mentioned that, bold to change your name after, 2 playoff appearances, but, ended in the semis both years. Maybe you need another bold step to be able to make it to the finals and win a championship.
That's true. I also think, correct me if I'm wrong, hasn't Erik won 3 titles with 3 different names?
That might be true. I don't know if he had Walkett like I Balkett the second year as well. I think he had it for part of the second year and then traded the name in the middle of changed the name in the middle of the second year, but don't quote me on that.
I'm not sure because I think Dreamweavers was short lived. He's obviously won his Stanton Stranglers. He won his Walk It Like a Bucket. Did he win as Magic and the Hampsons?
You know what? If we look through the trades, so like if you look at like the trade deadline in 2019 was the second season, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
He had Walk It Like I Balkett as of the trade deadline that year.
Okay.
And then he had it after the trade deadline.
Okay, so Walk It Like I Balkett has won 2 titles.
It looks like it, yeah. And then the Stanton Stranglers has won one, and obviously the Big League Yellow Champs has won the championship. So just throwing that out there.
Well, hopefully the Liam Hendriks experience will get a championship as well, or several. And yeah, I guess it goes to show that any I don't know, name changes are fun, and it's nice. There's kind of something fun about not having an established brand, because obviously the established brands are great, like the EBOs and the Team Resniks and the Moneyballs, but I don't know, it's kind of fun to change things up too.
No, it's definitely nice. I have some leagues where I'm more prone to changing it up. I think some of my favorite team names are definitely the ones I've kept for a while. Other than that, anything else we want to talk about? It's been a little quiet to start off the offseason so far. I suspect things might pick up as people are trying to make roster cuts here in the next few weeks. I know we have until like 5 days after the World Series to finish those cuts.
Yeah,
and I know there's certainly a couple players I need to figure out, although I know I've been focused on football, and then basketball starts today and hockey started last week. So it's kind of weird after a full summer of just focusing on the baseball league. It's like all these other leagues are starting, and it's a lot of fun, but also a good time to be in the baseball league too.
Yeah, it is fun. And I'm sure things will pick up here right around that time. Hey, I did pick up Jocktober. He's back on my team. So that's not nothing.
No, he's, I don't ever know if he's going to be the consistent fantasy asset that people want. I mean, I think that he does a lot of good things, but I think he's a little platoony. Hey, maybe he could parlay a strong postseason into something great next season. Although I was not a big fan of his 94 WRC plus. It's still hard for me to believe that he in a 4-year stretch had a 128 and a 100, but then a 126 and a 126 WRC plus. And if you go a year back from that too, he had a 116 WRC plus. It's one of those names where he's been good, but it's just like, I just haven't really thought of him as that consistently good of an offensive player in a while. And maybe he'll pick it back up next year.
Yeah, no, I've always thought he's been consistent and good. And I guess this year was kind of the exception to that, but we will see. And we'll see if he does damage on my team or on someone else's.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be interesting. I feel like outfield's a little thin right now in the majors, especially with like 5 outfield spots we have to fill. So any solutions that you can get is very helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We've delayed long enough. Are we ready to get into the awards?
Yeah, let's do it. I was excited to hear your surprise. I can't wait to see some more surprises with who people picked. If it's anything like you and I kind of said beforehand, I think that, maybe there won't be too many surprises, but I feel like there's always like so many surprises. This league is just always full of surprises.
That's true. And I mean, you can take the defining moments tournament as a shining example of that. Which I'm excited for year 3 of that, but yeah, there's always something in this league. Sometimes Connor just beats Sahil,
Yeah, man, I'm still not over that. I'm not going to be over it until I win another championship, or if I just absolutely pummel him in the regular season next year.
We'll see. Hey, maybe he'll slip by you again in the regular season. You never know.
God, you see, I'd almost rather him slip by me in the regular season, so then like come playoff time, it's not like, oh well, he beat me or I beat him twice already. Like I have to beat him the 3rd time, the most important time. But we'll see.
We shall see.
What a crazy season.
It is. But yeah, let's take a quick break, and we'll be back with the awards from this crazy season: the best players, the best moves, the best everything, all coming right back at you after this.
Charlie's on stage and the roof make a laugh. No one seems to worry about the light in the gap of the walls painted yellow and papered with math. They remind us it's time to move on.
All right, we are back now with League Commissioner Erik McKean, who will be with us to announce the award winners. How are you doing, Erik?
How are you guys?
Good. Have you gotten your trophy yet?
I have. Yep. Coming in a couple days ago. Yeah. It's a lot heavier than I thought.
It is. It's funny. I don't think I told you, but I was carrying it. I had to cross the street with it to get it to the UPS store, and a lady's walking out of the door at the same time. She sees the trophy in one hand, opening the door at the other, and she's like, "Oh, this sounds like a lot of fun." And I wanted to tell her, not so much for me. I'm the one shipping this away, but I don't get to keep it. But yeah, it was. It's a pretty big trophy. Congratulations again, Erik. You deserve it. But
thank you.
Boy, I miss it.
Yeah, you get to drink wine out of it.
Yeah. Next M-SABR get together, I definitely will.
Oh man,
I love it. I mean, we did have the 2-year anniversary of Bowl yesterday, so.
Oh man, I'm very happy you dug that video up.
It came up on my Snapchat memories, and I was like, "Oh my god!" Well, I knew it was going to come up because I had the Snapchat of us at Frida's that came up the day before, where I just absolutely wrecked your stomach. Mm-hmm. No regrets on my end. I'm sure a lot of regrets on your end, but so I knew that bowl was coming up the next day. But damn, I can't believe it was already 2 years ago. I guess I was in Ann Arbor last month, but hopefully I get to see you all again soon. It's been way too long. I only saw Erik for like 2 hours when I was there, and I haven't seen you in 2 years, Cam.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah,
we haven't seen
exactly 2 years. Yeah. So
yeah, wow. Good. Exactly 2 years.
Yeah, damn. How time flies.
How it does. But yeah, speaking of things that mark the passing of time, For the second year in a row, we are not my best transition. For the second year in a row, we are doing the awards for this league and announcing them live on the podcast.
Yeah, should be really fun. Got a lot of good performers this year, so
yeah, no, it's going to be great. And yeah, are we ready to get started? Announce the first award?
yep, let's do it. So first off, we'll go through the first team positional wise, starting off with first team catcher. And no surprise, it was unanimous. We got Salvador Perez.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Broke the catcher home run record. I think my favorite Sal Perez stat is just the fact that he basically played every day. I know he missed one game for an illness. It was like game 120 or something. He ended up playing 161 games. So he missed exactly one game all season. 127 WRC plus. And what's crazy to me is that WRC plus is 35 points lower than 2020's WRC plus. He still had a just ridiculous historic season this year. 48 homers, 121 RBIs. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else needs to be said. He's the most valuable catcher in Dynasty.
Yeah, no, I did consider giving it to other guys, but really, I guess since the on base was low, but really there's no comparison with the 48 homers, the 121 RBIs, 88 runs. He just was incredibly valuable for both the teams he was on this year. And yeah, easy choice.
He is got 50 more RBIs or 45 or something than the next best guy. That's like unheard of, especially at catcher.
Yeah,
That's insane.
Just nuts.
All right. Next, we got first team first baseman. It was almost unanimous,
Oh,
but Vlad Jr. got 7 out of 8 to take it.
Oh, who got the other vote?
It was CJ Crone.
okay. So
Okay.
I think we're going to see a trend here. I'm
Eight
surprised-
players who spent, or both players who spent the majority of their time on my team.
Yeah. I'm admittedly surprised that Will Smith didn't get a vote at catcher then if CJ Crone got a vote at first base. But I'll let Cam speak to Vlad here. But, you know, he should be the league MVP in real life if Shohei Ohtani didn't exist. So, I mean, this was an easy pick for me to pick Vlad.
Yeah, no, Vlad was an easy pick. He had just dominated all six maybe not all six categories, but a 401 on base, 111 RBI, 48 homers, 123 runs. He even stole 4 bases. He's a huge guy. So that's just an unbelievable season from him. And he's still 22 years old. He's going to be great for plenty of years to come. He finally broke out. I'm excited to have him on my team, and he's a very worthy winner.
Remember the Max Fried for Vlad Guerrero talks last offseason?
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, I'm very happy with Fried. Like, don't get me wrong, but you know, maybe I wish those talks had a little more traction, and I was rostering Vlad to go with Pete Alonso and Freddie Freeman and Trey Mancini and Max Muncy at first base. Talk about a first base group, but
Glad you're not rostering him.
yeah. Although Fried, let's give credit where credit's due for Fried. I think he led the league in ERA in the second half. I mean, he's insane. But
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm still a big fan of Fried. I like him a lot.
Yeah.
But I'm not trading Vlad for him anytime soon.
Yeah. I think that's safe to say. I think that's a smart move on your end.
Mm-hmm. All right, second base.
All right. We got a winner. This one was kind of all over the place. The winner got 4 votes, and then another guy got 2 votes, and then 2 others got 1 vote each. The winner was Marcus Semien.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like Semien split votes because, partly because Trey Turner was multi-position eligible. Was that part of it?
Yeah, actually, Ozzie Albies got 2 votes. Turner got 1, and Whit Merrifield got 1.
Interesting. I was the one Trey Turner vote, and I think Cam, you said you voted for Marcus Semien, correct?
That is correct. Yes, I voted for Semien.
Yeah, so I guess I could start with my line of thinking here. I had kind of narrowed it down to 3 candidates: Semien, Ozzy Albies, and obviously Trey Turner. And when I looked at the stats, there are a couple of things that kind of leaped out to me. One, Trey Turner just had the clear advantage in stolen bases. And stolen bases to me is just a category that, hard to find a lot of, hard to, really find difference makers in. So, Trey Turner being, second among second base eligible players in steals, I thought was really big. And I thought that kind of counteracted the fact that he had fewer home runs than both Semien and Ozzy Albies, although he only had 2 fewer homers than Albies. The RBI numbers were, he had fewer RBIs and they all had about the same number of runs. But the other thing that did it for me was the OBP. Trey Turner had a 375 OBP. Albies only had a 311 and Semien had a 334. So while obviously a 45-15 season from Semien is really impressive and all, I just thought that, the boost in OBP, which I feel like is getting harder and harder to find these days as well, stolen bases gave him the narrow edge. But emphasis on narrow. I mean, if you asked me to make this vote again, an hour from now, I mean, I might come out on Semien. But I had to go with Trey Turner. I really like the way he played this season. And I thought he was a real difference maker for the Dodgers down the stretch.
Yeah, no, my rationale was that Trey Turner played twice as many games at shortstop as he did at second base. So I figured I wouldn't consider him eligible for the second base award. So I voted for Semien, who I called Vlad a 6th category contributor, but really Semien, the OBP was lower than I would have liked, but he 15 steals, 100 plus runs and ribbies, 39 doubles, 45 homers. He just had a phenomenal year. I gave him away for very cheap, but that's okay. I also had given away Sal Perez for decently cheap, but we're not going to talk about that either. That was a couple years ago.
We all make mistakes.
But yeah, no, I thought Semien, since Semien was primarily a second baseman, I didn't think this was a particularly hard one.
Yeah, I'll speak quickly to the whole, do I pick Trey Turner because he played second base or whether or not he played second base. My criteria for that was, did he play kind of a sufficient number of games for me to also think of him as playing that position this year? So for example, I own Max Muncy. And when I was looking at third base candidates, Muncy's eligible at third base. I think he played 3 or 5 games there. Not a lot. Trey Turner played a third of his games exactly at second base, 49 games. So I thought that was enough for me to qualify him as a second baseman. But I definitely see why you would disqualify him for only playing 49 games there in his primary position being shortstop.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, Sahil, but given that he definitely did play a sufficient amount, but I kind of agree with Cam Warren that he didn't play those games until he got traded. So 2/3 through the season, he didn't have that eligibility. So that's why I voted for Semien.
No, that's reasonable. And if we're following those guidelines, I would have voted for Semien too in a heartbeat over Albies. But I think that kind of gave it the narrow lead for me. Had he played 20 games there, I don't think I would have considered him. But 50, and maybe I'm a little biased because he played there at the end of the season. So I've been thinking of him more as a second baseman recently. But I think those are very fair points.
Mm-hmm. We're ready to move on to the next one.
Yep. This was another 7 out of 8. You can guess who the other one was, with Jose Ramirez winning it and the other vote going to Nolan Arenado.
Cardinal Nolan Arenado. Sorry, Rockies fans. Enjoy Austin Gomber. I don't think there's much to say here other than Jose Ramirez is clearly the best third baseman this year. I think there are a couple other good candidates. I mean, like Devers had a really solid year. Devers pretty much had Jose Ramirez this season, just with a few fewer RBIs, which I guess is offset by having more runs, or other way around, few more RBIs offset by fewer runs, basically the same number of homers, but and almost identical OBPs, but Ramirez had 22 more stolen bases. Honestly, Arenado's not a terrible pick, except he had a 312 OBP somehow in the season. That surprises me.
That is surprising. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I would not have guessed that. I thought there were other couple candidates that maybe, were worth looking at, but nobody that clearly rose to the level of Ramirez. And I think Devers was second on my list. Maybe Machado was third.
Yeah, I picked Ramirez. I didn't have to think particularly hard about it. He was a good choice. He had a phenomenal season, and he is a champion, at least as far as this league goes.
Actually, you know what? I'll give credit to one more player, though. Austin Riley had a fantastic year. And if Jose Ramirez didn't really have the steal numbers, I think there's a really strong argument to pick Austin Riley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Shortstop. We got 4 votes for the winner, Fernando Tatis. 5 votes, sorry. 1 vote for Marcus Semien, 1 for Trey Turner, and 1 for Jake Cronenworth.
I wonder who voted for Cronenworth.
Jake Cronenworth. Well, Sahil, your player 1. Why don't you start us off?
Yeah, I'll dispose of Semien quickly because for the same reason you all disposed of Turner at second base, but Semien played even fewer games at shortstop. So I think there's no way you could justify voting for him in this category. If you're comparing Tatis's stats with Trey Turner's stats, it's definitely a little interesting here. So Tatis had 108 fewer at-bats, but had 13 more homers, 19 more RBIs, 21 more walks, only 7 fewer stolen bases. His OBP was only 12 points fewer. It had an identical number of Tatis had 3 less doubles than Turner, and only 9 fewer runs. And he was doing this while playing with a bad shoulder. So, I mean, I see why you voted for Turner, Cam. But I just think when you add up all the stats and kind of look at it, I mean, I think that Turner Tatis earned it a bit over Turner. Now that being said, I think maybe the injuries would have given me a little pause if I was a little more objective, although I can't say I was an objective voter for Tatis. I pretty much knew I was going to vote for him the second I started looking at this. So maybe you have a little more objectivity that you want to bring to this.
Yeah, so I'm not really compelled by the argument that Tatis had slightly worse numbers despite playing fewer games, because really the fewer games argument, that shouldn't really help your case in a fantasy thing where you go by counting stats and where availability is incredibly important. So he shouldn't be boosted for missing games. And I think, just looking at Turner, he had that better on base. He had more steals. He did drive in a lot fewer runs and hit fewer homers. So I was kind of on the fence, and I was on the fence in general. But I mean, Trey Turner was better in 4 of 6 categories, and I ended up going with him for that reason.
No, I think it's very fair. And, I wasn't trying to use his injury as an excuse necessarily, but I think the fact that he was able to put up 13 more homers and 19 more RBIs in that with fewer at-bats kind of shows the quality there. And then I didn't feel like the gaps in the other categories were that different enough compared to homers and RBIs, even though those were the only 2 categories he was better in. It was by pretty significant amounts. And again, I might just be biased because I saw him on my team all season, and I know that my offense suffered quite a bit during the spells when he was out. So I might just be a little biased. Also probably biased because he was being talked about the first 4 or 5 months of the season as like the NL MVP, which I don't think is going to be the case anymore. And because of the trade conditions with Zane, I'm actually hoping he's not. But yeah, this is actually closer than I thought now looking at the numbers. So
yeah, no, and I do appreciate your argument and stuff. And it was a tight choice. Absolutely. No question.
No, I think we're on the same page here.
Yeah.
All right. So I forgot to put together the outfielders and starting pitchers, but I was able to do the outfielders while you guys were talking just now. So I'll do the starting pitchers when you guys are talking about the outfielders.
All right.
So first team outfielders were Juan Soto, Bryce Harper, Cedric Mullins, Starling Marte, and Aaron Judge. Also receiving votes, Nick Castellanos, Teoscar Hernandez, Kyle Tucker, Whit Merrifield, Fernando Tatis for some reason, Ryan Reynolds, Mitch Haniger, and Jordan Alvarez.
So that's a little surprising. I know we both voted for Castellanos, and he did not make the list. But a lot of people got votes here. It's exciting to see.
Yeah, so you said Harper, Soto, Judge, Mullins, and Starling Marte.
Yep.
Okay, that's basically who I picked, except swap out Judge for Castellanos. I mean, I think Harper is going to win the MVP in the NL. He had a 427 OBP. That's insane, right? And he did that with 35 homers, 100 ribbies, 13 stolen bases. But then if you want to talk about even more insane, Juan Soto, 465 OBP. And 29 homers, 95 ribbies. Harper actually had 84 RBIs. I was reading his walk total, not his run total, because I looked at the Soto's total in that category. It said 145. I was like, there's no way he drove in 145 runs this year. But I mean, just looking at those OBPs alone, I think you can vote for them easily. Mullins had a 30-30 season. That was awesome. Big surprise for the Orioles. Incredibly excited for the future with him. Funnily enough, 30 homers, but 59 RBIs. So more than half of his RBIs came from the home run. And I'm sure that has to partially do with the quality of the Orioles offense and partially because he was batting leadoff all the time. Starling Marte went on a tear with the 47 stolen bases to lead the league. And I think like he might have led both the AL and the NL. He broke so many like stolen base stats. I think he might have even broken Ron Ricky Henderson's stats. And Castellanos, I thought was awesome this year. I thought for the good chunk of the season, he was a candidate for the NL MVP. I know injuries took a little bit of a toll there. I'll let Cam speak more to Judge because I didn't vote for Judge. But yeah, what do you think, Cam?
Yeah, so I think there were a lot of worthy guys. Aaron Judge just had a very Aaron Judge season. He hit 39 homers, got on base at a 373 clip, drove in nearly 100 runs. Maybe the doubles weren't quite where you'd want them to be, but I thought he was great and one of the best outfielders in the league. I did not vote for Starling Marte. I thought the steals were great, but he only drove in 55 runs, which is way, way fewer than just about anyone who was in the conversation. And he only hit 12 homers also. I think Cedric Mullins was my first one out, but I threw a vote towards Brian Reynolds because I thought he had a great year. He was 90 plus in both runs and RBIs. His on base percentage was 390. He hit 35 doubles. I thought he had an incredible year. That was not Andrew who gave the homer vote. That was me giving a sincere vote to Brian Reynolds.
Wow. I mean, Brian Reynolds, I think, is definitely deserving. I think for me, when you're comparing Brian Reynolds to Cedric Mullins, I think you have a pretty decent argument here. I think, obviously I feel like it boils down to, does Mullins 25 more stolen bases and 6 more home runs kind of outweigh the fact that his OBP was 30 points lower and he had 31 fewer RBIs.
It's a little similar to Tatis versus Turner.
Yeah, I'd say so. I feel like there's a trend here where, I'm giving a little more credit to these steals guys. And I think in the case of Mullins, I might just be a little more biased because he's an Oriole. And maybe Tatis is just a bias because I watch him on my fantasy team all year. But I think it's hard to pick. It's hard to, I feel like we're splitting hairs here. I could have made the argument for Reynolds, or I could have made the argument for Mullins.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They both had great years, and everyone who received votes had really great seasons. It was a really tough category to choose.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised he didn't pick Starling Marte, although that, I think the more I look at this, it's tricky because leading with 47 stolen bases is great. And me, I'm big on OBP too. So the 380 OBP was fantastic. I guess he did have fewer ABs than some of these players, and maybe I could have put a little more weight onto that. Yeah, you're right. I had this conception in my head he was more of a 20 homer guy than a 12 home run guy this year. But I mean, if you're looking at the player rater, and the player rater, I don't think is like the end all be all. The player rater did have him as the 8th best player in the league. And
that's crazy, actually.
Yeah, 3rd ranked outfielder behind Harper and Soto, and I guess 4th if you have Tatis ahead, just because. But they do have more than half of his values attributed to his stolen bases. But you could also say the same thing about Soto. Half of his value and the player rater is associated with his OBP. So I think it's, to what extent in your voting is it where when you have a player is just so elite at one category and also very solid at a couple other categories, do you boost him up versus somebody who is a little more balanced? And I think the variety in the outfield votes kind of shows that. I had a hard time figuring out what categories to weigh more than others. And I just, I ended up going with scarcity when things were in doubt. And I think stolen bases, and especially this year, OBP, I felt like were a little more scarce. So, you could find cheap homers and RBIs everywhere. I mean, we all know the season that like Frank Schwindel had, or like Brad Miller had 20 homers and he's sitting in free agency, right?
Thank you, 2 hits, baby.
Yeah. But you're not finding a 40 steal guy in free agency. I guess you find a 30 steal guy in free agency because Mullins was sitting there, but
yeah.
Hey, so, Tyler Wade's a free agent, and he had 17 steals with the 354 on base percentage.
He had 17 steals?
17 steals and only 127 at bats.
Shit. Man, maybe
someone might have picked up Tyler Wade by the time this podcast drops. This is a little interesting.
Yeah, holy shit. I mean, I
eligible at 4 positions. Is Tyler Wade the next breakout guy for Eric's team?
Oh my god.
I think I had him at one point, actually.
He between
not this year, it doesn't look like.
Between September 17th and October 3rd, he only had one game where he got more than 2 games with more than 1 at bat.
Well, whenever I go to pick up players, I think he was always on like the top of the list of like, hey, I should pick this guy up, but he just didn't play enough, I don't think.
Yeah.
Yeah, no one really picked him up at any point, sadly. But you never know. Hey, he's 27th ranked positionally at whatever position rank has him at.
Yeah. And you guys know this Shohei Ohtani's got a bunch of coverage this season about like, oh, this has never been done before. But talk about Starling Marte, 47 steals and 379 OBP. How many times has that been done?
I mean, yeah, not recently, at least. I don't know. Has Whit Merrifield put up a season like that? I don't know.
No, I don't think he's ever had like a great OBP.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a valuable player. I had the opportunity to trade for Starling Marte in the offseason, and I didn't give Zane quite what he wanted. So he would have been a good guy to have. These are all valuable players, certainly.
Yeah, it's funny. I traded away Marte a couple years ago thinking that, like, oh, he's a speed guy. He's not going to age that well. It's not like he hits for a lot of power. Like, want to get off from him a year early rather than a year too late. And he ended up being almost as valuable as Tatis in fantasy. So interesting to see. I mean, obviously, he's a 10-year age gap, or maybe even more, but damn, what a great season.
Yeah. All right, ready for starting pitchers?
Let's do this.
Let's do it.
Yeah, this one was surprisingly a clear 5, even though, there's a whole bunch of guys to choose from. There's a clear 5 that got at least 6 votes, and then a couple other guys that got either 2 or 1 votes. But the 5 was Walker Buehler, Robbie Ray, Max Scherzer, Corbin Burns, and Zach Wheeler.
Yeah, no, that's pretty clear cut. Full disclosure, I don't remember who I voted for, but I'm pretty sure that those were my 5.
Yeah, so Buehler, Ray, Scherzer, and Wheeler, those are 4 of the 5 names. Is that correct?
Yeah, and Burns.
I voted for those 4. I did not vote for Corbin Burns. Now, the reason I didn't vote for Corbin Burns, Cam and I actually talked about this a bit before the podcast. I was strongly debating Corbin Burns. It feels weird because I think he has a really strong chance of winning the NL Cy Young. But from a fantasy perspective, there's a couple things that I thought hurt his case. First off is the innings pitched. He only pitched 167 innings. By contrast, Wheeler had 213 in a third. Buehler had 207 and 2/3. Robbie Ray had 193 in a third. So you had a lot of these top end guys who, just simply had more innings, and I thought that ended up making them a bit more valuable. With respect to quality starts, I think that was the other kind of big category for me. Buehler had 27 quality starts, which led the league by 4. So I thought he was an easy pick. Robbie Ray had 23. He was an easy pick. And I mean, he led the league in strikeouts at 248. Wheeler was one short of that lead with 247, which also made him immensely valuable, even though it took him 20 more innings to reach that number. Scherzer, now it's interesting looking at Scherzer versus Corbin Burns. They posted pretty similar numbers. But I feel like Scherzer, just the way he pitched the second half with the Dodgers, really stuck in my mind. And also he did it in a few more innings. And also, it's Max Scherzer. So I think that kind of helped. And man, I am already forgetting who the 5th guy I voted for was. I know Wheeler, Buehler, Scherzer, and Ray were 4 of them.
Yeah.
I remember being
tempted right
to
here,
put,
actually.
I
have it right here, actually.
Who did I pick?
Kind of goes against your first argument. It was Shohei Ohtani.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so here's my logic with Ohtani. I was like, there's nowhere else to put him. He would definitely be my first team util. But the problem is I didn't know how we were going to vote for util, with it usually being like the top of the vote getters from like that were selected for the first team. So I wanted to give him some sort of recognition in these first team votes. And I thought that, and maybe this was wrong of me, but at the time it made sense, and I combined the starting pitcher part of it with the hitting part of it. Had I actually voted for another starting pitcher, I think it would have been Corbin Burns would have been 5th. So maybe you could technically put me down as having voted for Burns, I guess. But that was the only way I could really figure out to vote for Ohtani for one of these first teams. But if we're going to honor him as a first team util, then Corbin Burns would have been my pick.
Yeah, just like last year, we'll vote for, after this comes out, we'll vote for middle infielder and corner infielder. And then after that, the first team utils.
Okay, so pretend I voted for Burns then. I was a little unclear on what the procedure would be, but I mean, shout out to Ohtani pitching. He had a very solid year on the mound. In addition to the hitting, I think he was a little better hitter than he was a pitcher. Therefore, answering the pitcher to hitter with the hitter, but still solid nonetheless.
Yeah, no, definitely a solid year. Did I give a vote to Woodruff? I think I may have. I don't fully remember who my votes were.
Yes, you did.
Okay. Yeah, no, I guess I'll speak to Woodruff then as I pull up his stats.
It's interesting you voted for my guy, but I didn't vote for my guy. I didn't vote for any of my guys. Despite the fact that there are a couple I considered, but I couldn't justify it in the end. But go ahead. I want to hear your reasoning.
Yeah, no, I thought Woodruff just had a great year. I mean, he was near the top in quality starts. He was near the top in strikeouts. He had a whip under 1, an ERA of 2.56. And I just think he wasn't like top 2 in any category, but just looking at his numbers, he was near the top everywhere. And I think that was good enough to earn a vote. Like, for example, he was, I guess, in terms of qualified starters, he was just behind only Scherzer and Burns in whip. He was behind only behind only Burns, Scherzer, Bueller in ERA. Quality starts, it was Bueller, Alcantara, Ray, and Wainwright were the only ones ahead of him. And then in terms of strikeouts, it was only Ray, Wheeler, Cole, Scherzer. So it was a few more guys than that. But he was like top 4 in the 4-5 range for just about every category. And I thought that was really worth something. He just had a all around really solid year, and that was worth recognition.
Yeah, I appreciate you voting for one of my guys. Like, I mean, I agree with everything you said. I thought he was personally my most consistent starter in my rotation this year, until Adam Wainwright came along the second half of the season. But yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with him. He's a great starter, and I'm very glad to have him.
So yeah, the other pitchers receiving votes aside from Ohtani and Woodruff were Logan Webb, Julio Urias, and Freddie Peralta.
Yeah, I love Logan Webb. I'm kind of pissed that Ruthvik has him. He deserved it. His performance in the NLDS, I mean, 14 innings, 1 earned against the Dodgers in 2 starts was fantastic. Peralta, my problem with him was the innings. 144 in the third and only 14 quality starts isn't going to do it. Although the fact he recorded 195 strikeouts during that stretch is pretty impressive. Who'd you say the other guy was?
Julio Urias.
Yeah, I mean, he also had a solid season, but like I just didn't really live up. He only had 13 quality starts. That surprises me. I mean, I guess the Dodgers don't really let him go that deep, but still, I think other guys that should have gotten more consideration. Adam Wainwright, obviously, I thought he was the best starter down the stretch this year, other than maybe Scherzer or Max Fried, who I think had the best ERA in the second half. Like, we touched on him a bit earlier. If Fried had pitched that way in the first half, we might be talking about him as a Cy Young candidate. Although his lack of strikeouts, the average. He had 158 strikeouts and 165 and 2/3 kind of did it for me, and not really being able to justify him.
Ready to move on to closers?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yep, it was pretty clear cut in this one. All votes went to either Josh Hader or Liam Hendricks, except for one, which went to Will Smith.
I was on the Will Smith vote, even though I own him, but
it must have been the owner of the former team formerly known as the Will Smith.
Yeah, I will say, I mean, Hendricks tied for the league in saves, 113 strikeouts with only 7 walks is just insane. And then Hader, 123 ERA, 0.84 whip, just equally insane. I thought they were pretty easy votes. I also gave some consideration to Raisel Iglesias because he had the same number of saves as Hader, but double the ERA. And he's actually a bit more comparable to Liam Hendriks in terms of the ERA and WHIP and Ks, but I thought Hendriks' WHIP was lower and he had fewer walks. So despite the fact they gave up the same number of earned runs, I kind of leaned Hendriks there. And he pitched for a winning club, which I think gave me a little bit of bias towards him. Shout out to Will Smith, though. He was second with 37 saves. So the ERA is a little higher than you'd like, but he had a good season.
Yeah, no, he did. And I'll speak to Liam Hendriks briefly because he's, I really, really like him. He's my guy. He got 38 saves, 113 strikeouts in 71 innings is really awesome. So I'm very happy to have him as first team closer for the second year in a row.
Yeah, I remember when I added him in the second season and then traded him to you with Anthony Rizzo for Gleyber Torres, but you gave me Kyle Lewis in that deal. I gave you a player to be named later, and then that turned into Kyle Lewis.
Yeah, no, that deal really worked out for me, huh?
Worked out for you. I think worked out for me too. I turned Gleyber into a lot of stuff from Erik, including Brandon Woodruff and others. Gleyber's disappointed. I'm kind of surprised how much he's disappointed. And then it's had a happy ending for Erik too, though, because he traded Gleyber Torres and Mike Clevenger for Wander Franco last year. So
okay. So it all works out for all three of us.
Yeah, it doesn't work out for Clayton and Jake, but it worked out for the rest of us.
Mm-hmm. Who are the best setup men?
All right, we actually have, one of them is clear cut Blake Trinan, and then we have a tie for second. So maybe we should just break it on here. It's between Giovanni Gallegos and Luke Jackson.
Ooh, I was kind of predicting those would be the two names that were tied, and actually, Cam, you mentioned Luke Jackson off the air as one of the guys. In fact, there were three holds guys that we talked about off the air. There were Trinan, Luke Jackson, and Giovanni Gallegos.
Yeah, no, we did. The thing about Luke Jackson, he had a great year, but he couldn't find regular time on a team. Look, he was a free agent from July 20th to August 11th. I added and dropped him twice. He wasn't owned until June 18th. He was additionally a free agent from June 28th to July 18th. So he really, I'm not sure how you can be the top setup man if you're not on a team for half of the year.
Yeah, I think that, I read a lot of holds kind of tiers articles this year, and often there would be two in the top tier, and it'd be Blake Trinan and Giovanni Gallegos. And I think Trinan was a clear choice, led the league in holds. He had a sub-2 ERA, sub-1 WHIP. He also had 7 saves to go with that too. So 39 combined holds and saves is a lot. Very critical for the Dodgers this year. Gallegos was also on the roster for the full year. So without really wanting to dig into who was on rosters for when, I thought that was kind of an easy pick. He did also have 14 saves, and he was kind of the full-time closer in September. He did have, 95 strikeouts, which was of players who were exclusively relievers. He was one of the top players for that. And of players who were primarily holds guys this year, he was definitely near the top. I think only Chad Green and Hector Neris. Hector Neris got 11 more saves and holds. So I guess only Chad Green had more primary holds guys. I know the ERA was a little higher, but again, when you're looking at it was still a solid 3.02. His WHIP was very low, only 0.88. And when you're looking at small sample sizes, two or three runs can make an ERA look a lot better. So I didn't put as much weight on tap, but I thought it was kind of hard to pick this category just for, that reason of who's on a roster, who isn't, for most of the year. But I'm pretty proud to have picked up Blake Trinan in free agency last year, and to get Giovanni Gallegos as a throw in the Tatis deal. Actually, after trading him to EBO, because I had him the year before too on my championship team. So Gallegos always finds a way back to me. He's my guy.
He does. No, tough, kind of a weird category to vote for, but I think we chose the two best guys.
Yeah.
I actually voted for Tyler Rogers as my second, just because, I know he what's the word? He was in between the closer's role and one of the setup men roles for like the whole year. But the fact that he was only 2 behind the league leader in holds and he had 13 saves just gave me the bump for him.
Yeah, he did have a lower ERA than Gallegos. He had a 2.22, although the 107 whip. One of my big things with him was he only had 55 strikeouts. In comparison, Trinan had 85 and Gallegos had 95. So, like, that's when Gallegos had almost double the amount of strikeouts that Tyler Rogers had. I mean, I think that makes a pretty big difference. And gave up 23 fewer hits. And I guess Gallegos had 7 more walks, but yeah, that kind of did it for me.
Makes sense. Others receiving votes were Aaron Loop and Adam Ottavino.
Ottavino was kind of bad to end the season, although I owned him for a good chunk of the season. So shout out there to me, clearly picking all the right guys. And Loop.
Yeah, I'll announce that Loop is on the trading block.
Shit, he had a sub-1 ERA.
Yeah.
I will not be trading for Aaron Loop anytime soon, but yeah, shout out to him. He had a nice season as one of the few lefties in that Mets bullpen.
He did, yeah.
17 holds, though. I'm surprised he got that many votes when there were a lot of guys with a lot more holds.
Yeah, you only got 1 vote, and you can probably guess who it was from.
Yeah.
And going to the most improved team category, it was almost unanimous. Andrew voted for himself, and then everyone else picked Connor.
Had Connor not won the champion, or he didn't win the championship, had Connor not gotten to the finals, I think there's a really compelling case for Andrew. Although Andrew wasn't able to sustain the early season momentum when it low-key looked like he could actually sneak in as a 6th seed. But yeah, I mean, I think Connor's a pretty easy pick here. I did want to give a shout out to Alex and Zach, though. I do think that rotation's really improved. After the first 5 or 6 games of the season, they were basically a 500 team. And it's funny to call them most improved after a season in which they made the playoffs last year, but I thought that last year's team was really flawed. And I think that the core that they've built now is a lot better than maybe the core that they had at the beginning of this season, just the way things have developed. So that's a team whose future I think is really bright, but yeah, nobody came close to Connor.
Yeah, no, Connor was the easy choice. I'll give a shout out to Anthony, and I think had we voted at the midpoint of the season, he would have gotten a lot of votes. And I think Andrew would have gotten more votes had we voted at the midpoint of the season. But really, after the playoffs, it was not in doubt. Connor was the most improved team. And he improved in the middle of the season, too, by adding Ray and Perez. And this team is legitimately really good, and they've arrived.
Yeah, and I'll say the trade deadline had to be the most important thing, because, I mean, had they not gotten Ray and Perez at the deadline, no way are they in the finals. We already established that on previous podcasts, the difference that made, and I think no way are we calling them the most improved team, therefore. So Connor really pushed all the right buttons this year. I'm excited to see what the encore is for him, we saw Ruthvik make it to the semis last year and completely fall out of the playoffs this year. I don't think that's going to be the case with Connor, but I'm really excited to see him next year. I think he can really establish himself kind of as being in the top 4 with you, me, and or with the 3 of us. I don't know if I'm 100% ready to put him there yet, but he certainly had an impressive run through the playoffs this year.
Yeah, we're just going to have to see.
Yeah.
All right. Next one is most surprising offseason trade. We have a tie 4 votes went to the 16-player deal between Connor and Andrew, and then 4 votes went to the Tatis story deal.
Can I just say I'm pretty blessed to be in a league where there's a debate as to whether the biggest deal of the year was Tatis getting traded with like a shit ton of conditional picks and another top 10 to 15 dynasty asset also included in the deal, or a 16-player deal with a bunch of really awesome young players. That's awesome. I voted for the Tatis deal for a couple reasons. One, I know Zane had kind of mentioned that maybe Tatis would be available the day before in the chat, but like Zane put out a lot of stuff. So, I don't think anybody gave it a lot of, kind of credit, but it was just all the conditions and all the moving parts in that deal were just so interesting. And it's like, I forget how many conditional first round picks are involved, but like, it's insane just how many picks are involved, and there's still some picks that might be going to them or vice versa based on whether Tatis and Story win the MVP. So I had to vote for that, especially with the best player being involved of any in that trade, and that was Tatis. I don't think anybody really saw that coming. That being said, I still remember being on the call for the 16-player deal, and Andrew and Connor kept alluding to something big happening. And I was all right, like 6-player trade, like whatever. And then they just dropped the 16-player one. And it was kind of hard to process at the time. Can we revisit that actually? What pieces were involved in that? Because I know we judged it at the time, but I wonder what that looks like now, like a year after.
Honestly, I think it'd be fun to dedicate an entire segment on another episode to this trade, because there's a lot that went on in it. We don't particularly have the time right now.
Let's do that. But I mean, boy, like if I'm looking at like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of these players had substantial impacts this year in the majors. Like it's nuts. And several others are still in the minors or they were draft picks. So yeah, let's save that for another episode. But yeah, which trade did you vote for, Cam?
So I voted for the 16-player trade. And my rationale was essentially that this was the most surprising trade, and a huge trade involving you is less surprising than a huge trade that isn't involving you, because you make big trades all the time. And I was kind of tipped into the fact that Tatis could be moved. Zane had kind of reached out to me about trading about some sort of potential Tatis Soto deal, which I kind of entertained for a little bit, but didn't end up going through with, obviously. So there were kind of rumblings at the time, and you're just always making big trades. But Andrew and Connor are not always making big trades. How many times have they traded with each other? Not a lot.
That might have been their first trade.
Yeah, no, exactly. I am pulling this up now. I don't know what page it's on. Anyway.
Should be the bottom of the, hold on, I'll find it. Bottom of the trade history.
Gotcha. Yeah, Connor and Andrew have made
3 trades.
3 trades together. There it is. Yeah, it's not often, and they and I mean they make a medium amount of trades in general. I guess Connor makes an above average amount of trades. He had an entire hurricane named after him, but still it really felt like it came out of nowhere, and that's why I voted for it.
Yeah, I'll give you that. They come out of nowhere.
Yeah, I voted for that one too, just because that we didn't know who was in it, even though we know some kind of big maybe happening, but we kind of knew Tatis was on the block. So I guess we'll give it to that one for this category. And then next one, most surprising in-season trade.
Hey, before you do that, what were the other trades that were options to vote on? If we want to go through those quickly.
For offseason,
Yeah.
it was the EVO's first trade after they declared their RP strategy, the Scherzer, Mize, etc. for Fried, Sixto, and then Heriberto.
Yeah, I mean, that one kind of got lost in the shuffle for me with just like the sheer number of trades that they made afterwards that were all kind of like blended together. And if it's not memorable enough for me to remember it like that, I mean, I do remember the trade, but like not all the specifics like off the top of my head, like I do like 16-player trade or like the T steal, and it just wasn't enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, so most surprising in-season trade. The winner was Manny Machado for Marco Luciano.
Interesting. Okay.
Well,
I don't remember what the options were. What were the other ones?
yeah.
The other options also each got 2 votes, so 3-2-2, so it was a close one. It was the Robbie Ray deal and the Hosmer and Dylan Moore for Fam deal.
Yeah, I voted for Machado for Luciano, I believe. Or maybe I didn't. I definitely didn't vote for the Hosmer deal. The Hosmer deal wasn't surprising. The Hosmer deal was just dumb. The Robbie Ray deal, I guess, wasn't as surprising. Or no, I did vote for the Robbie Ray deal. That's right. The Robbie Ray deal, I was thinking of the Barrios or Perez deal because that wasn't surprising to me at all. The Robbie Ray deal, I know that Alex had been loosely selling like Robbie Ray, but like he just had not gained any traction. And then to see him just traded for Ryan McMahon kind of casually, I was like, whoa. Like, just didn't see it coming. I feel like Cam, were you the one who was in on Robbie Ray at one point?
I was in on Robbie Ray at many points.
Yeah, me too.
I would say that. So I had talked to him early on about it. It was just like, I didn't trust it. And finally, like when I had trusted that Robbie Ray's breakout was legit, the price was just too high. And I didn't really need a starting pitcher. But the Machado for Luciano deal, I guess, surprised me. It's funny. I was on a mountain walking up and like chatting you all because I think the Scherzer deal dropped that day too. And thankfully I still had service at that point talking about it because I was kind of surprised, but that doesn't really like, I don't know. We make a lot of big trades in this league and it just felt like another one of those big trades, whereas the Robbie Ray deal kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, no, I think the Luciano deal, just with Luciano being the biggest prospect by kind of a bit that was traded in the middle of the season, I thought that made it the most surprising. And maybe I would choose the other deal if I wasn't so in on Robbie Ray, but I do kind of feel like we were for a while kind of pushing, even on the podcast, saying, okay, Alex has got to trade Robbie Ray soon. It's going to happen. He's got a lot of value. And then when it finally happened, I wouldn't say I was surprised.
I would say the opposite, even though we know it was going to happen. Just what he was traded for was just mind-blowing.
That's true.
Yeah, unlike you two, I wasn't really in conversations for Ray at the end. So I had a general idea that like he was available that day, but I was not expecting him to be dealt. And as a matter of fact, I almost kind of wish Alex kept him. Because I think he could have gotten more in the offseason.
Yeah,
he probably
sure.
could have.
Yeah.
All right, next category. Most lopsided offseason trade. So it's almost unanimous with most of the votes going to the Marcus Semien deal and one vote going to the Biggio Lau deal.
Yeah, I voted for the Semien deal. I mean, Cam might talk up Tanaj Thomas here, but Tanaj Thomas hasn't done enough for me to really think that this is worth much of anything.
It's 5 ERA.
Yeah, like and I'll admit, I was the first one to admit that like I was nowhere on the Semien bandwagon going into the season, but I thought he got dumped for basically nothing. I thought that 2019 was a fluke. He had never had a season with 100 WRC plus before that, just 97, 98, 97, 97, and 91 in his other full seasons. at least with like the Biggio deal, like Biggio was good in 2019 and 2020, where like and he had the neck injury this year, where maybe that deal, I think I end up taking the L there. Now looking at this long term, but I do think there's a reasonable chance he bounces back next year, especially if they shift him back to second base to replace Semien, because I feel like he never really got comfortable playing third base this year. I believe the Eddie Rosario for Brandon Woodruff deal is also on there.
Yes, it was,
Yeah.
along with the Ozuna for Sixto with as and Montes.
Yeah, I thought the Ozuna for Witt deal, I mean, that was kind of lopsided as well. But I mean, I thought that there's at least, again, a little bit of an opportunity for that to maybe balance itself out. And the Woodruff deal came in second for me. I mean, I thought that deal was a little lopsided when I made it. And Rosario didn't have the best of years, but Tyone bounced back in the second half of the year. Unfortunately, he wasn't still on Alex's roster at that point. And Eduardo had like an okay year, which, at least he got some value out of that. Cam's not really getting any value out of Tanaj Thomas. So yeah, I thought that was an easy vote.
Yeah, so let me start by speaking in defense of this trade. Marcus Semien at the time really felt like he had a fluke season in 2019. And I just wanted to get value for him with feeling like I had a really short up middle infield, which I did not. And then so I wanted to get value for him. Tanaj Thomas, Fangraphs liked him a lot. And still there's one team that really likes Tanaj Thomas. So that's not a waste. And that draft pick turned out to be Tyler Soderstrom. I am really, really high on Tyler Soderstrom. He's a catching prospect for the A's, who it's looking like he might be moved to first base eventually. Either way, he can hit. He could be a guy who comes up to my team in a year or two and does really well for me. So that's a good piece to have. That being said, the whole Marcus Semien saga was a massive disaster and maybe the worst thing I've done as an owner of this team. I mean, so I traded him away. I sold low. I sold low on him, and he was the best second baseman in our fantasy league. I sold low on him for two prospects. And looking back at the deal, so I had acquired him, and don't look up this deal yet, because I'm going to talk about it and you're going to be maybe surprised, maybe not. But I'd acquired Marcus Semien in what really felt at the time like a buy low, I guess it was buying a guy who was really good for dirt cheap. And I gave up basically nothing to get Marcus Semien, who was coming off a phenomenal year. I was proud of myself. Erik, you had said, yeah, but Leody Taveras is great. He turned out to not be great. But there was a second player.
He's got time.
There was a second player I gave up in that deal, though. Do you remember who that was? Either of you?
Logan Webb.
Yeah,
Logan Webb. Yep. Logan Webb. So that really might bite me. And who's to say if I would have kept Logan Webb on my roster? I probably wouldn't have. He lost minor league eligibility, and he was still trash. I mean, at that time, it wasn't really until this year. There's no way you would have kept him. I don't think you could say that giving up Logan Webb is bad, because he would have hit free agency, I guess. And I had just picked up Logan Webb. The minor leagues had expanded like the week prior, the month prior, and I had just picked up Logan Webb as one of my 5 guys. There wasn't really, it wasn't like I was giving up a guy that I had put any capital into getting him. But it's not a great look, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, wish I would have held on to Logan Webb too.
Well,
yeah.
We've all got those guys.
Speaking of Semien trades, though, at least, or if you're looking afterwards too, Semien did get traded away for more even before the season. If you recall, Jake and Clayton traded Semien and Jared Oliva to EBO for Cam's 2022 first, Bayron Laura, and Kay Cavalli. Now Kay Cavalli's stock actually, I think, has risen quite a bit since that trade. And I mean, who knows what your first is going to turn into this year, Cam. It's 9th overall. But I'm sure Clayton and Jake would love to have that trade back and have Semien in their lineup. I'm sure he would have been much better at second base for them than or shortstop for them than Gleyber Torres gave for them this year. So I guess if it's any consolation, it's not like Jake and Clayton benefited from it. But that being said, I think another thing that gave the edge to voting for that trade for me was that literally that offseason, Semien was traded for quite a bit more than you traded him for. Because I even in the offseason had Kay Cavalli as a better prospect than Tyler Thomas, and then to add a first round pick and Bayron Laura to that, I thought made it a no-brainer that return was bigger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it might prove to not be, but it certainly at the time feels like it was a bigger haul for Semien.
Yeah, if we go back to that podcast episode talking about it, I'm pretty sure I shat on that trade for EBO because you gave up or you got so little for him in the first place. Now you gave up a bunch. So it's funny how hindsight works here. One of these days we need to like go through and just figure out like our takes from prior podcasts on trades and just like stitch together all the bad ones.
That'd be good. That'd be hard. But
it'd be hard, but
yeah. We could dedicate a whole episode to your Kevin Biggio trade.
Oh God.
Speak for another 20 minutes.
Yeah. I feel like if I spoke for 20 minutes now trying to justify that trade now, I couldn't. There's no arguments I can make in a 20-minute period that would work. And I hope he bounces back. And if not, I have a couple teams who want him still. So maybe he's a buy low in the offseason. Still going to be third base and outfield eligible. Probably going to gain second base eligibility next year. Somebody come take him. This is my plea. Andrew, I'm looking at you. I know you want him. And I know you listen.
All right.
Yep.
Next, we have most lopsided in-season trade.
Yep.
We had 5 votes for one and 3 for another. The one that got 3 votes was the Sandy Alcantara one for Ronnie Mauricio and Chris Flexen. And the winner was the Sal Perez Sal Perez and Aaron Savali, Luis Medina, and a first for Jose Barrios.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, I'm surprised by this. I thought the easy pick was the Alcantara for Mauricio deal. I mean, I know that Mauricio is listed as a 55 FB on Fangraphs, but I don't think he's really shown it in the minors so far. I think his best case scenario is becoming a guy like a Jazz Chisholm. But I think the odds of that are pretty low. I think he could end up being a solid major leaguer, but like Alcantara was tied for second in quality starts. Like a 3 ERA. He's the ace of that Marlins rotation. I remember being pretty pissed when that trade came down. And I mean, I kind of shat on that trade from the beginning. I think the Barrios deal might not end up being lopsided in the long term, just because Sal Perez is now a 31 or 32-year-old catcher. And I get that he's going to move to DH probably at some point, but like he's caught so many games already. And that's some wear and tear on the body. And it's not like he has a high OBP to start out with. If the power goes, it could get ugly. He had a 274 OBP in his last full season in 2018 with 27 homers and 80 RBIs. Before this season, he never had a season with more than 80 RBIs. So, and he will be 32 he will turn 32 in May. So, and Barrios had a pretty solid year overall. Let's see if I can pull up his exact stats here. So I think that trade's a little early to judge. I think the Alcantara deal is clearly more of an L. Barrios had his lowest ERA of his career. He had 3.52 ERA, 3.47 FIP, also a career low, and 192 innings. So, and he's only going to be 28 in May. So, yeah, I think he could be a solid fantasy starter for the next 5-6 years.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, and I guess I'm maybe not as high on Barrios as you are, but I think in general that the Alcantara trade felt like such a massive mismatch at the time. And Perez may not be the best long-term guy, even though he got Connor to the finals almost single-handedly. So that's a big part of why I got votes, I think. But I think long-term the Alcantara trade could be very harmful for this team.
Yeah, I will say though, Barrios can absolutely take off as he hits his prime here in the next couple of years. And like, even if Barrios wins a Cy Young next year, I think Connor's gotten enough from Perez already where there is a 0% chance he will ever regret this trade. Even if Barrios just completely becomes like the best pitcher in baseball.
Yeah, I think that sounds fair.
Yeah, just for what he did this year. I mean, I think my problem with Barrios is that he's never going to be the guy. I mean, I think he'll get close, but he's never going to quite be the guy who's going to strike out like 10 plus an inning or 10K per nine. His highest was 9.71 last year. He had a 9.56 this year. And I always feel like he's just going to kind of go through stretches where he's just not on. Like, I feel like he's a little inconsistent. So I think that'll stop him from ever being a fantasy ace. But as like a number 2 in a fantasy rotation, boy, I love that.
Next one is best off-season hitter pickup. There was only really 2 good finalists for this one, but the winner was unanimous, Brian Reynolds by Andrew.
Brian Reynolds, top 5 outfielder.
Who was the other option?
Adam Frazier.
Wasn't Adam Frazier an in-season pick? Oh, no. You picked him up on opening day.
And he would have been a better looking answer if we did this voting at midseason. But yeah, no, I think Brian Reynolds was the easy choice.
Yeah, I mean, I think Adam Frazier, even before he got traded, just a homer and steals numbers aren't there for him. Very good OBP, but yeah, I thought this was a pretty easy pick. I don't really have much more to say. We talked about Brian Reynolds quite a bit when we talked about the outfielders.
Mm-hmm.
And then for best off-season pitcher pickup, unlike the in-season, I did not split this one up into relievers and starters because there was like no good starting options to pick from. So the winner for this is Blake Trinan. He received 7 votes, and Jake McGee received 1 vote.
Yeah, I mean, Blake Trinan was the best holds guy this year, and I don't think it was particularly close, as evidenced by our vote for the best holds relievers. And Jake McGee, I feel like, lost his hold on the closer's job a little at the end of Camilo Doval, and then I don't think he really had it at the beginning of the season, but he was really solid there in the middle. And I know Cam really likes him, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, I like Jake McGee, and the reason I didn't give a vote to him was because he was traded mid-season for not a whole lot, so it's kind of hard to say that he was the best offseason pickup. But I like him. He was great to my team. He's available for those who are interested, and but we've really spoke a lot about Trinan already. There's not much more to say.
Yeah. Trinan might be a guy that's available as well. I need to stop trading all my good relievers after a season. Sometimes it works out. But yeah, maybe Blake Trinan's available. Who knows?
You win some, you lose some.
Yeah.
And
right.
What's up next?
Best in-season hitter pickup. It was 7 to 1 vote again. 1 vote going to Brandon Crawford and 7 going to Cedric Mullins.
I mean, Cedric, the reason I gave Cedric Mullins the edge over Brandon Crawford, or a couple of the reasons. One, the stolen bases, as I mentioned earlier, is really important for me. 30-30 season, all of that. But he's a young, and he's an actual legitimate dynasty asset, whereas Brandon Crawford's like 35. Not really a legitimate dynasty asset, but a great fill-in for whoever picked him up. I couldn't even tell you who picked him up.
Both of these pickups were by the Bellies, actually.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, no, I think Mullins was the easy choice for me. He's another guy we've already talked about. We're running long on time already. We don't need to talk more about him. Pitcher pickup.
Yep. Or first go with starters. This one we had a tie, so we're gonna have to break it here. It's
Oh.
four votes to Carlos Rodon and 4 votes to Logan Webb.
I voted for Logan Webb, and part of the reason was I think Rodon was like one of the best starters through like July, but then he broke down with injuries, and that kind of did it for me. Rodon, how many innings did he end up pitching? I don't think it was all that many.
He pitched 132, so it was about 16 fewer innings than Logan Webb.
Yeah, and Webb had a slightly higher ERA with the 297. He actually, versus Rodon's 237, Rodon had the 0.96 whip. Webb had a 110. Quality starts. Webb had 5 more quality starts. Webb did have fewer strikeouts. I mean, I think you could go either way. I think that Webb is a better dynasty asset. He is younger than Rodon, so that's kind of why I lean to Webb. But like, I you could vote either way here, and I think it's justified.
Yeah, I think you can go either way. I don't even remember which way I went. They both had terrific seasons. Carlos Rodon had the 237 ERA, a whip of 096. He didn't have a ton of quality starts, whereas Logan Webb had more quality starts, but the ERA and whip were quite a bit higher. Yeah, not a whole lot differentiating the two of them, but we got to break this tie somehow.
Yep. And it's going to go to Carlos Rodon because his strikeout upside is just so much more. And I know he had a bit of a rough stretch about the time with the sticky substance ban happened, but over his last 10 starts, he had a 239 ERA. So I think it's actually clearly Rodon.
There you go.
All right, Carlos Rodon.
I will say, if I'm Ruthwick, I'm much happier that I have Logan Webb long term than Connor should be about having Carlos Rodon long term. I am concerned a little bit about Rodon's injuries moving forward, and I think Webb is a legitimate ace.
This might be kind of surprising coming from me, but I think Webb's got to prove it a little more before
Interesting.
we give it to that. Yeah.
Interesting.
But
It's not
anyway.
like Rodon has a lengthy track record either, but
yeah,
Rodon had a
That's-
no-hitter this year, didn't he?
he did.
Yeah, okay, there you go. That's another reason to vote for him.
I think Connor actually picked him up while it was happening, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, really good pickup by Connor.
All right, next best in-season reliever pickup. This is gonna be another tie between Andrew Chafin and Tyler Rogers.
Oh, Jonathan Lowe-Seigan.
Oh yeah, he got 1 vote.
Hey, from me. Yeah. I'd go with Tyler Rogers.
Oh wait, actually, I realized I added this to the form after I voted, and I would have voted for Tyler Rogers, so we'll give it to him.
Hey, yeah, okay, there we
Right.
go. I would have voted for Tyler Rogers personally for all the reasons that we mentioned earlier. I personally, think the ERA was just. Let's see if I can.
Well, Chafin had a better ERA.
Oh, did he?
Yeah,
What was Chafin's ERA?
183.
Damn, I'm really misremembering this then. So Chafin had the better ERA and the better whip. Chafin had more strikeouts. Chafin, I guess where you've seen a difference is he had fewer holds and fewer saves. He had 27 combined saves and holds compared to Rogers' 43. And he pitched 13 and 2/3 fewer innings. So I guess from a fantasy perspective, I think the combined saves and holds is more valuable. So yeah, I think I'd probably pick Rogers there.
Yeah, I think it probably is. Yeah, the the strikeouts, Rogers really did not strike a lot of people out, which, I mean, with his funky delivery is surprising to say the least. But I guess it kind of comes down to, do you care if your relievers are striking a lot of guys out, or is a high strikeout reliever just kind of icing on the cake? And that's up to you.
I mean, partially depends on your team build. I think if you're EBO, you don't really care about the strikeouts. You care about the holds and the saves, but some of us might care more about the strikeouts.
That's true. And in a tight week, especially, it really could come down to, even if both teams have 12 starters going, it could come down to how many strikeouts the relievers get.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Next category is Rookie of the Year.
Nope.
And 3 guys receive votes: Adolis Garcia, Randy Rosarina, and the winner, Jonathan India.
Hey.
Adolis Garcia no way deserves to be on this list. He was ass the second half of the season. I'm disappointed that he got a vote. Randy Rosarina's fair. The reason I voted for Jonathan India was, I swear there was like 7 or 8 times this season where I chatted Cam and I was like, oh, Jonathan India got on base again. I swear I never see him not get on base. Because I watched those I watch fantasy cast pretty closely every day. And I watched the Reds one because, Castellanos would come up like right after India. So I'd see what India would do. And it just, remember when you were trying to dump him, Cam, for like not a lot?
Yeah, I was. He's a long-term guy on my team now.
Yeah.
But it's fun. I got him in a deadline 2019 deal that I made with Connor. And he was a bit of a throw-in, and he was always just kind of a back of the top 100, in and out of the top 100 on a lot of lists, kind of a little bit of an afterthought, really. And he came up, he had a hot spring training and a great April. And I thought, cool, this guy's good, but he's still on the block. And then he kind of stunk it up in May. And it really felt like he was just kind of, he'd come back down to earth. He'd turned into a pumpkin and just kind of he regressing, basically. But then all of a sudden he started getting on base every time, just like you said, and he was batting leadoff, and he continued to bat leadoff for the remainder of the year, and hopefully for the remainder of the next 15 years. He's my favorite non-Joey Votto Cincinnati Red in a really long time. He's so much fun to watch. He's so exciting. And he's going to win the Rookie of the Year in real life. And now he's won the Rookie of the Year in our fantasy league too.
Yeah. Rosarina had a good year as well. I actually wasn't really.
He did. He proved a lot of people wrong, Randy.
Yeah, he did. I kind of shat on him a bit and was like, there's no way he's going to keep this up. But I feel like because of all he did last year, I wasn't really thinking about him when I was thinking about these rookies. So maybe had I thought about him a little more, I would have considered him for Rookie of the Year and maybe picked him. But I think India was the right choice here. I don't regret it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funny. In terms of hitter rankings, they were actually back to back on the player rater, with Randy just slightly higher.
Interesting.
You just trade off Randy's steals for India's OBP, and they pretty much have the same stats otherwise.
Damn.
Yeah.
But seriously, whoever voted for Adolis Garcia, God, he's so bad. He's so bad. He's just bad. He needs to be like Nomar Mazhar. He has like one good half a season, and he's gonna like ride that into like 5 years of relevancy in this league, and it's just it's not gonna end well. But,
all right.
Oh man, I wonder what the Dominic Brown takes would have been had this league existed during his hot couple months.
Oh God, someone would still be holding on to him 3 years later, being like, "This is the year," or like John Singleton, or I'm trying to think of other names like that. But yeah, there would have been a couple of those guys.
All right, next up we got Cy Young. We got 1 vote for Max Scherzer, 1 vote for Robbie Ray, and 6 votes for Walker Buehler.
Congratulations, Sam.
All right, thank you. I'm 2 for 2 in the big awards so far. Buehler, he had 27 quality starts. How are you going to beat that?
Yeah, I mean, well, he had 27. I think Scherzer at like 18 or 19. And they had comparable ERAs of Whips. And Bueller had like 30-ish more innings than Scherzer. Yeah, almost exactly 30. That's a pretty easy pick. Who else did you say got a vote again? Oh, Robbie Ray.
Yeah.
I mean, Robbie Ray is also deserving, but the ERA and the WHIP were a little higher than Bueller's. He had fewer quality starts. I mean, the 36 more strikeouts is nice, but he also pitched fewer innings. I mean, I thought Bueller was kind of the easy pick here. I didn't really spend any time deliberating over this one. I kind of knew. But part of the reason is Cam and I talked quite a bit about quality start leaders during the season. I noticed just how big of a gap there was between Bueller and everybody else. So I kind of had that idea, but I mean, Bueller is just awesome this year.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
All right, moving on to the last one. MVP. We got 1 vote for Juan Soto and 7 for Shohei Ohtani.
Did you vote for Juan Soto, Cam?
I did not. I voted for Ohtani, and I would have voted for Vlad if I were to vote for anyone but Ohtani. But yeah, no. Who did vote for Soto?
Oh, yeah, the person who voted for Soto was the person who had funky picks all around.
Oh, shocker. Okay. I mean, Soto's a deserving candidate most years. I mean, he had a 465 OBP. I mean, if you're getting on base nearly half the time, you're ridiculously valuable. But like, and actually, Soto's had a 7.01 value on the player rater from his OBP. The second highest was Bryce Harper with a 4.83. So I think that just shows you how valuable on Soto was OBP wise. But I mean, Shohei was an elite hitter. And he was a very, very good pitcher, albeit in less innings than some of the other elite pitchers. I mean, it's easiest pick possible. My question is he able to replicate it? Is he able to stay healthy enough to do both at a high level? I think there's a chance this is just his best season in the majors. I mean, we saw it happen his first couple of years in the majors. He wasn't quite able to get it all together. Whether it was injuries or ineffectiveness or whatever, but he's the easy pick here. And if he's not the unanimous AL MVP, I'll be pretty shocked. But any thoughts here, Cam?
Yeah, no, I think he was the easy choice as well. He did it all. He just had that historic year. There's been so much discourse about Shohei Ohtani all year. Here and everywhere. I mean, we named a podcast after the guy. For crying out loud, how could he not be the MVP?
Yeah. I mean, if I had to bet, I'd say this is going to be his best year ever. But, you know, if he could just be a little more consistent with the pitching, he could be even better there. Because I know he had 2 games where he just didn't have it. You guys gave up 7 earned runs against the Yankees, and then 6 earned runs at Houston at some point. So, and he just never had it during those games. He probably should have got pulled earlier, to be honest. But yeah, we'll see if he can do it again.
We'll see. I mean, we've talked on the show, and I'm not sure we talked directly to you about. I mean, now could be the time to trade him, and if there's like an Ohtani for Bo Bichette plus a little something else deal, that could be too much to pass up.
I think you did actually talk to me. I don't know if it was on the podcast or if it was like after, but yeah, I wouldn't do that deal, even though I have to think about it.
Yeah, I remember this, Cam. You and I talked about it, and then one of the times we talked to Erik before one of the recent podcasts, because I feel like he's been on like every recent podcast. We definitely talked about this. Yeah. It's an interesting thought experiment. Although, yeah, I see why you wouldn't want to necessarily trade him. But yeah, I feel like he's just such a high risk, high reward player, but he's just so special that like you don't really want to trade him, you know?
Yeah, I'd probably be inclined to just ride out his career until he becomes bad. Like, even if he just like, okay, I'm probably just going to keep him.
No, I agree. I mean, I think there's certain players that you kind of reach that point with. I feel like everybody has different breaking points with different players. Like, I feel like my breaking point with Christian Yelich, even though he has now had 2 kind of mediocre years, is like, I'm not really close to my breaking point with him. Whereas like, one bad season from, I don't know, another player might, get me to kind of jump off the bandwagon. So who knows?
Mm-hmm. Well, all right. So those are the awards. Is there anything else we need to know? Anything else that people voted on? Anything at all?
No, just like I said at the midway point or something around there, I think. A couple days after pad is released, I'll put out the polls or not polls. Everyone will just DM me their votes for middle infielder and corner infielder, and then after that, we'll do the 2 utilities.
Yeah, absolutely. We could definitely announce those on the podcast as well. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And I know thanks for coming on the past couple of weeks, Erik. I know we've had you on quite a bit between the draft lottery, the awards, all the announcements for the postseason. And it's been fun having you on. And I don't have anything else really to say. We've been recording for like forever now. But yeah.
It's a long episode, but yeah, it was great having you again, Erik. And yeah, we'll see everyone next week. We're going to try and get Zane on to kind of talk about his decision to return. So it's going to be a good one.
This podcast is good.